To a fly, you move in slow motion. When your hand comes down to swat it, it sees the whole thing unfold like a lazy wave rolling slowly in. Which is exactly why you almost never manage to hit it. A fly's brain processes the world roughly 4 times faster than yours does. Which means, in a very real and literal sense, a fly and a human standing in the same room are living in two completely different speeds of time. Sit with that for a second, because it quietly breaks something we usually take completely for granted. We treat time as though it is one fixed, universal thing. 1 second ticking by at exactly the same rate for every creature everywhere. But it isn't. It simply isn't. And once you start pulling on that thread, it unravels into one of the strangest and most unsettling questions in all of biology. Do animals actually feel time passing at all? Let's start with what we actually know, because there are really two very different questions quietly hiding inside this one. The first is about speed, how fast an animal's world appears to move around it. The second is about duration, whether an animal can actually feel a stretch of time pass, the way you feel a long, boring afternoon slowly drag by. They sound like the same question. They are completely different problems, and animals, it turns out, solve them in completely different ways. Let's start with speed, because that is where a fly comes back in. Scientists measure this with something called the flicker fusion rate. Here is the basic idea. Take a flashing light and gradually speed it up. At a certain point, the flashes come so fast that they blur together into a single, steady, continuous glow. For humans, that point arrives at around 60 flashes per second econ, which is exactly why our screens and our lights look perfectly smooth and continuous to us, even though many of them are actually flickering rapidly the whole time. But a fly's eyes and brain can keep those individual flashes separate at rates 4 or 5 times higher than ours. To a fly, our smooth, steady, continuous world would look like it is lit by a flickering strobe light. And because it is sampling reality so much faster than we do, everything that moves through its world, including your descending hand, appears dramatically slowed down. Researchers have now measured this across dozens and dozens of species, and the underlying pattern is remarkable. In general, the smaller and faster an animal's metabolism is, the higher its flicker fusion rate, and the more slowed down the world appears to it. A small, quick bird experiences time faster than we do. A fly faster still. A large, slow, cold animal, like some deep-sea creatures, may experience it far slower than we ever could. Which leads to a genuinely dizzying conclusion. A single second does not feel like a second to every animal. That exact same tick of the clock can be a long, leisurely stretch to one creature and a fleeting blink to another. Time, it turns out, has a speed, and that speed depends entirely on who is living through it. But here is where it starts to get complicated. Because processing the world quickly is not the same thing as feeling time pass. Your phone's camera captures 30 frames every second, but it isn't sitting there in your pocket feeling the seconds tick slowly by. Fast processing is not the same as felt experience. So the deeper, harder question still remains: can an animal actually sense duration? Can it feel itself waiting? And this is where the evidence gets genuinely, unexpectedly surprising. Consider what scientists call interval timing, the ability to track how long something takes. In carefully controlled experiments, animals ranging from rats to pigeons to fish have been trained on tasks where reward only appears after a fixed specific delay, and they absolutely nail it. A rat that has been taught that food arrives 20 seconds after a signal will reliably start showing up and looking for it right around the 20-second mark, not by counting numbers, but by drawing on some genuine internal sense of elapsed time. Something inside these animals is actively measuring duration. They have, in effect, a stopwatch quietly running in the background. One they never consciously started and can't consciously stop. Then there are the longer clocks. Nearly every animal on Earth runs on a circadian rhythm, an internal, roughly 24-hour cycle that governs sleep, hunger, body temperature, hormone release, and alertness. And here is the remarkable part. Keep an animal in constant, total darkness, with no sunrise or sunset to guide it, and that rhythm keeps right on ticking anyway, staying close to 24 hours, generated entirely from within its own body. The animal isn't simply reading the time off of the sun, it is carrying a working clock inside its own cells, wound and running independently of the outside world. And the clocks get longer still. Birds somehow know the exact season to begin migrating. Bears know when it is time to den down for winter. Some animals track cycles that stretch across multiple years. A creature with a brain smaller than a marble can somehow time a single crucial event to the correct week, a full 12 months in advance, using nothing but the biological machinery inside its own tiny body. So animals clearly track time. Fast time, slow time, seconds, days, whole season. On that much, the evidence is genuinely overwhelming and beyond dispute. But tracking time and feeling time are still two fundamentally different things. And this, once again, is exactly where science slams into a wall, because everything I've just described could, in principle, run entirely in the dark with no inner experience whatsoever. A circadian clock does not require anyone to be home experiencing it in order to keep perfect time. A rat's internal stopwatch could be firing away with flawless accuracy and no accompanying sense of a minute slowly dragging. The intricate machinery of timekeeping can exist completely without the felt experience of time passing, in exactly the same way that a thermostat measures and responds to temperature, without ever once feeling cold. So does any animal, anywhere, actually feel the weight. There is one clue that is genuinely hard to dismiss, and it circles right back to something you have almost certainly witnessed with your own eyes. Think about a dog whose owner has just left the house. Some dogs simply settle down immediately and fall asleep, but others pace restlessly. They go and stand at the window. They return to the door, and back to the window again. They seem, by every single outward sign, to be waiting, and genuine waiting implies feeling the gap, sensing on some level that something expected has not yet happened. Studies have even found that some dogs greet their owners noticeably more intensely after longer absences than after shorter ones, which strongly suggests they are registering the actual difference. Not merely that you are gone, but roughly how long you have been gone. Now that is not hard proof of an inner experience. A more precise unconscious stopwatch, with no feeling attached to it at all, would produce the exact same behavior. But it is precisely the kind of thing that makes it very, very hard to say, with a completely straight face, that nothing whatsoever is being felt inside there. And this is the real, beating heart of the whole question. We can measure an animal's various clocks with astonishing precision. We can chart its flicker fusion rate, time its intervals down to the second, track its daily and yearly rhythms. What we cannot do, by any means currently available to us, is get inside and find out whether any of it actually comes wrapped in a feeling. Whether the dog standing at the door is genuinely enduring the long afternoon, or simply behaving exactly as if it is, with no one home inside to feel the minutes slowly crawl past. Still, notice the pattern here, because we have seen this very same pattern before. The animals that seem to wait, to anticipate, to actually register how long you've been gone, tend to be the very same ones with the richest inner lives in every other respect. It is not scattered randomly across the animal kingdom. It clusters tightly, exactly where you would most expect genuine experience to live, if experience is truly there at all. So maybe time, like so much else in this strange world, runs along a spectrum. At one far end, the fly all but drowning in a rushing flood of fast-sampled moments that it almost certainly never pauses to reflect on. Somewhere in the middle, the rat with its silent, faithful background stopwatch. And near the other end, the dog at the window, who may actually feel the full weight of an empty afternoon pressing slowly down on it, as it waits and waits for a door to finally open. We spent a very long time assuming that the felt passage of time, the sense of duration, of before and after, of waiting and enduring, was something that only we human beings could possibly possess. And maybe the very fullest, deepest version of it truly is ours alone. But the closer and more honestly we look, the more scattered pieces of it we keep finding all through the animal world. In creatures we had always simply assumed were running blindly on pure instinct. Which brings us all the way back to you right now, in this exact moment reading these words. You can feel these seconds passing. You know that this moment is happening, and you know that it will very soon be behind you. That feeling is so utterly constant, so completely ordinary, that it has become almost entirely invisible to you. But it may quietly be one of the strangest and rarest gifts of being alive at all. And somewhere out there right now, a dog is sitting patiently by a window, watching the afternoon light slowly change across the floor. Maybe feeling the very same thing that you are, waiting for a familiar footstep it is absolutely certain is coming, if it can only just manage to hold on a little while longer.